All right, welcome back, everybody, to another Appreciating Comic Book Art video. This time we were taking a look at Andy Kubert, FlashPoint, which was a very fun book when it came out. And I've been meaning to pick up, there's a copy. The DC does those unwrapped books where it's just pencils. There's a copy of FlashPoint that I want to get. One of these days I'm going to buy it and add it to the rest of my collection. But before we get started, if you like this channel and you like these videos, please hit that subscribe button, hit the like, share it for me. Make sure you hit the bell so you get all the notifications for when I go live or when I post a new video. All of that really, really cool shit that they always say to do. Please do. And before we go any further, just a reminder, I have a book coming out this year. Well, I'm working on it right now, and the tentative goal is to launch it in the July to September range. But it's called Reaper Destroyer. Those are the color covers. The color cover by Brian Valenza, who, if you've been paying attention right now, he's a hot colorist. He's working with Rob Liefeld, doing a bunch of Marvel, Snake Eyes, and like all that stuff. He did the colors for the Darkness Kickstarter and the Witchblade Kickstarter, Detective Comics 1027, Marks of Vesperis variant. The dude is in high demand. He's got an awesome palette, and he's going to bring some wonderful colors to my book. But be on the lookout for that. If you're interested in that, comment, find me on social media, hit me up, let me know if you want to be part of the mailing list. I'll be putting that together soon. All right, getting that out of the way. Now we're going to keep, I don't want to zoom. What am I doing here? Yeah, get it together. All right, here we go. So this is a big book, so we're not going to go through the entire thing. We're going to cruise through a little bit here. So yeah, written by Jeff Johns, obviously art by Andy Kubert, and inks by Sandra Hope and Jess Delperdang. I don't know, but Sandra Hope is a very talented inker. If you ever see her, follow her on social media. She's all the time putting up videos of her inking and stuff, and just watching her ink is such a pleasure. But yeah, this is what I'm talking about right here on this side. It's like that's kind of what you're going to get with the unwrapped. And I love these things. So you can kind of see how a artist, how tight they draw or how loose they draw, depending on the inker they're working with. Now, if you take that, let's compare it back here to the cover. There it was. And you can see how much Sandra pulled that together. If you get a chance, pause that and look at that, because that just shows you how good of an inker she is. All right, not taking anything away from Andy Kubert, because he and his brother Adam were one of my favorite duos. You know, I loved them both when they were at Marvel. And you know the big story where the Image guys left to start Image, and there's my computer running slow for some stupid reason. Select this down to one page. You don't have to worry about it. There we go. They left they left Marvel to start Image, and left behind a whole crop of artists. What is going on here? That is highly disappointing. Apparently, I can get that page, but they were what's left. You know, the Kuberts, the Greg Capullos of the world, and they picked up the slack, and they did it in high quality fashion. If you look at the run on X-Men that Andy did, and then look at the run on Wolverine that Adam did, top-notch art. I mean, they were killing it in the 90s. I mean, I think they were producing as good as anything that was at Image at the time. And you know how much I love Image as artistically. So Andy's a very good storyteller. You know, he kind of sticks a little bit more with the blocky panels, which is fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. But this is a beautiful double-page spread of Thomas Wayne's Batman in this Flashpoint series. Gotham, you know, it's funny that for the colors and the take they went with this, you know, it's a little bit more lit up than the normal Gotham, and it's supposed to be a much darker kind of take on the characters. But Alex Sinclair is I think that's who was doing the colors, but he's a fantastic colorist too. He's been doing a lot of DC stuff, you know, working with Jim Lee quite a bit. But the dynamic styles that Andy can put his characters in, like just the stances, showing that action, you're seeing all this stuff. That takes a second to draw and to figure out how you want to make this all move. You're following two characters as they're coming down to the final catch. I've never been able to do that personally, so I have a lot of respect for the guys that can do that and do it well. Again, like I said, a little bit more of a blocky like panels, not as dynamic of a layout as we've been looking at with like Todd or Brett or Mark Silvestri or any of those guys, but it works. It's just good storytelling, and he's great at facial expressions. And that's one thing as a storyteller you can be strong on or you can be weak on. Even some of the best artists don't always capture the best facial expressions. So, and I'll just say, I have a hard time doing that too. It's not the easiest thing in the world. So people that can really pull that off, you can say so much when you're doing facial expressions that that you just step above some of the others when they kind of stick to like maybe three different facial looks. You can have like the mad, the sad, the plain. How do you show joy? How do you show shock? All those different things. It's not easy to do. It's something you really have to study. But Andy and Adam, coming from, their father was Joe Kubert, a legend in this industry, and they got to have training under the best, so it's no wonder these guys came out and just have had stellar careers, both at Marvel and DC, working with some of the biggest characters out there. And it shows, man. Put the hard work in, and you're gonna have a lifetime job. And I've also seen them draw, different styles. Like there's, this is the very, there was a style that Andy had in the 90s. I'm not going to say he was trying to be Jim Lee, but if you listen to some of the guys talk when the 7 left, that they wanted to have artists come and kind of emulate them a little bit in the books. So, you had a standard that Jim Lee had set in X-Men. So the next guy coming in, who wasn't Andy right off the bat, I think Art T-Bear did an issue here or there, and he did a great job with that as well. But you kind of wanted that Jim Lee feel. So, I mean, the 90s stuff, Andy was able to come in and kind of capture that. It was still Andy's style. It was still him, but he was doing a little bit more of like the Jim Lee impersonation. I would say it's the same thing with Adam when he jumped on Wolverine. He was doing a little bit of the Mark, but it was still Adam. These guys didn't lose themselves. They didn't become clones, but they kind of kept that feel. Oh yeah, here's another just beautiful. This is what I'm talking about. Like I absolutely, don't get me wrong, I love looking at inked pages, but there's just something raw and absolutely gorgeous about penciled pages. And again, you can kind of get a sense of how tight do you have to be as a penciler, how loose you need to be. A lot of it depends on the inker you're working with. How well can they bring it all together, And like I said, Sandra Hope's a great inker artist in herself that can take what Andy gives her and just put it all together. And the finished product is this, So we get through some of these pages. Yeah, this is one of the ones I wanted to get to. I love that. There's not a lot of like action going on, but dynamically, just the mood of the overall shot there, it's just great. As an artist, I get excited with small things, like tiny things like this. That's not where I wanted to go. This direction. All right. Tiny things like this. I just love that. I love the little detail, how the clouds build, or I guess it's steam from the steamboat. It just builds and billows away. You got this texture in the background. It's just all set in atmosphere and mood. And you just really get a sense, like all this tiny little detail. And here it's just, and I'm going to say that this was probably, a lot of this was Sandra, because I would venture to say that Andy probably gave, a version of what he wanted in here, and then she added a lot of the tiny little detail. And again, that really goes back to the high quality of artist, inker, finisher that Sandra is. I would love to get her on the Odd and Stuff show. I'd love to get Andy and or Adam too. It would be great to talk to some legends. Yeah, it is, you know. See, even with the action, like I'm saying, it's a little bit more boxed. You don't see like too many of the dynamic stuff, but it's fine. Like, you know, it works. It works for how he's telling the story. Not everybody has to have that crazy layout that like Brett Booth does or Greg Pulo does. You know, it can just work like this. I think sometimes I just get so stuck in the creative way to lay out a page that sometimes I maybe take for granted how good this stuff is right here. And again, you know, it's the storytelling, it's the action, it's how your eye moves to the page. I mean, look at all this tiny little detail. You know, and some of that it's not like straight lines, you know, not a lot of ruler work here. You know, this is a lot of like freehand ways of putting this all together, but it keeps the atmosphere, like I'm saying. In my opinion, a lot of these panels is all about the atmosphere. It's the tone, it's the mood that you're putting the reader into as they're looking into it. And that was wait a minute. Let me back up here. What did I miss? Was that Grift? It's been a long time since I saw it. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be Grifter or not. But if you've seen the cartoon, the animated movie version of this, which was so well done, by the way, like DC for a while was just absolutely killing it with their animated movies. But they had Grifter in it. And if anyone's a fan of the Wildstorm Image character Grifter, it was really cool to see him in the movie. It's been a while since I fully like looked through this entire thing, so I don't know if that was supposed to be Grifter or if he actually does show up with his mask. I can't remember. There you go. Another cool shot there. You can kind of see how loose that is. All right, let me, for time's sake, look at the bottom here. See if we get to some more dynamic pages. Do another cover. I believe, yeah, okay. So this is an awesome example right here. You're going to see just how Andy basically just shapes this out. You know, not a lot of detail, a lot of hard shadow there, and how it really kind of gets brought together with the inks and the colors. Whereas in just the pencil, you know, like I said, I love this. I love it. It's very, you have to have a taste for this kind of thing. But the detail in the pencils isn't there as it is when it's all finished out. And you can just take a second, you can see what's added. And that's why I love doing stuff like this. I love looking at the raw pencils, seeing what the inker brings to the table, and then seeing how the colorist brings it all together and makes it one beautiful package. And that's comic books, ladies and gentlemen. That's the beauty of what this platform is. You know, it takes multiple people to make something look as good as it does. When you're growing up, you know, you look at the artist, you think it's all about the artist. You don't realize that what you're really seeing is the inker. So a lot of the way Jim Lee looked in the beginning of his career, you know, a lot of that was Scott Williams bringing them all together. You know, Jim Lee even talks about how he adopted some of Scott Williams's rendering style. And then later on in his career, Scott Williams kind of adopted some of Jim Lee's rendering style. And it's a give and take, you know. But to create a good book, you want to first make sure you have a great penciler or good storyteller, and then you need to have another good artist and an inker to bring it all together, and then find the quality colorist, because any one of those three will absolutely destroy your book for what you want to do. And I'm, you know, speaking from an independent creator point of view, I'm doing the pencils, so I can only have myself to blame if that doesn't look good. But I brought in, you know, one of the best inkers I can find in Joe Weems, and one of the best colorists I can find in Brian Valenza. And I think you really do yourself a service when you're putting together a crew like that. Yeah. So this is going to be the last thing I'm gonna look at here. Just again, I want to just take a shot here at the pencils and the finished cover. And again, when you're drawing, see, I would consider this like right? It's loose. It's loose because there's not a lot of rendering, but it's tight because, you know, everything you need to know for the rest of your creative team is right there. You know, and it allows Sandra, if she wants to add some extra cross hatching to bring some of the shadows out a little bit more, you know, you can see how she'll feather it a little bit more and pull out the light sources where it wasn't really there. You know, it's slightly there, it's very loosely put in, and she'll go through and tighten it all up and make it look pretty. That's what a great inker does. So, all right, everybody, I really appreciate you taking the time. Again, I'm trying to keep these videos shorter. They seem to be going long. I start to ramble. It is what I do. But thank you for joining me. And one last time, if you like this video, you like the channel, please subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. Hit that like button. And I will talk to you all later.